one of our greatest guests from the greatest generation. Meet Kenny Biddle, coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Elizabeth Maddox Chapin Library on the Grand Strand campus of Horry Georgetown Technical College. We're focused on the greatest generation. We're visiting with one of its members, Kenny Biddle. Good morning.
Good morning,
Mr.
Greg. How are
Biddle.
you? Thank you.
Great to have you in. I got to say, I got up early this morning. I was thinking, this guy is all about the ABCs. Born in Canada, growing up in Colorado, living much of his life in California.
Yeah.
Now living in Conway and on the creek front in Murrells Inlet. If it wasn't for your time in the Army Air Corps and your last name being Biddle, it would be all about the letter C. But we got an A and a B in there, so it was great thinking about it this morning. Of course, that does not encapsulate you. I don't even think 30 minutes will do it. But I'd seen your son a couple of weeks ago, and he had some great things talking about his father, who's gotten on the internet and is now sending emails to people all over the world. And I thought, what a great opportunity, a gentleman who's almost 90. Great to get you in.
Well, I have email cousins in Canada, Colorado, and California. Now, these people that I have most emailed with that are far away are children that I knew when I was young in Canada.
In Canada.
Because we went there every summer, like 24, 25, and 26, or maybe 25, 26, and 27.
You're talking about the years, yeah.
Every summer we went to Canada.
Yeah.
Once we went to Edmonton for a summer. Then we went to St. Paul for a summer. And then we went to Post Falls, Idaho for a summer. But my father worked for the railroad, so there was no problem with transportation. He worked for the Union Pacific.
Right.
So that's why we took all these trips.
You fell in love with the railroad.
Yes. Yes, I did.
It's fascinating reading a little bit about you. I believe your daughter-in-law and your son helped me get a little ready for being with you this morning by laying something out. And there was a point in there where you're riding on the top of railroad cars.
Yes. Sometimes you couldn't get in them because they were sealed. And you tried to find an empty if you could, and if you did, there's probably 20 other guys in there.
Right.
But you could ride on top all right.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd unbuckle our belts and loop through the catwalk and fasten them back up and go to sleep.
You'd go to sleep riding on the top of a moving?
Yes.
No, not moving.
Yes.
A moving railroad?
Yeah. Yeah.
You say like that's no big deal. I mean,
well,
I don't get it quite yet.
In those days. It was no big deal in those days. I remember probably on one freight train there were probably 250 free riders. And they looked to put us off. And they did several times. There was no place to go. So we'd haunt the dairies to help them with their milking. In the morning we could help them, and in the evening we could help them. And during the day we could chop up the soil or whatever they had, and then we'd get a meal and probably breakfast the next morning, and then they'd shove you away. And we also could find the local county jails as a good place to stay over the night.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
How would the jail let you in?
Well, they'd if you went up there, say in the evening between 5 and 7, why they would be open, and you'd go in and say, I haven't got any place to sleep, so they said, okay, we can sleep here for the night. And you were locked in.
Right.
And they gave you a bowl of porridge and milk the next morning and put you on your way.
I can't even imagine. I hate to tell you, my father had a similar experience, and they had to do the same thing. Had to lock him up because he was walking back in the cold and had no place to go at one point in his college years.
Yeah, well, so that's what happens.
That is fascinating.
And there were 4 of us started off from Colorado together, and only 2 of us wound up together another 6 or 8 months later. The rest of them got homesick and went home.
Believable. I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah.
Well, it's fascinating seeing about some of your early years. Now, you were born in
Canada.
In Canada.
Nanton, Alberta.
And I believe your mother was Canadian, your father was from Wisconsin?
My mother was Scotland.
Oh, Scotland, that's right, and your father was...
My father was from Thorpe, Wisconsin. But he was the foreman of a ranch in Nanton. And my mother and her sister were cooks for the crew that worked on the ranch.
Right.
Probably about 20 men. And my mother and her sister were cooks for the Hayden Ranch.
Right.
Hayden. And that's about all I can tell you about
Sure.
that.
Now, what is your earliest childhood memory? Was it there? Had you already moved to Colorado?
Yes. My earliest memory of Nanton was probably 25 or 26, the first year that we went there, first summer that we went there.
1925 or 26?
Yeah, 1925 or 26. And I met these people that were relatives of mine, and we just became friends, and there was a lot of boys around, all red-headed, just like I was, and we all had a great time over the summers.
Right.
And my mother's sister married a fellow from England by the name of Duffy. And he had a string of horses there that we used for draying. And they were Percherons. And so they had quite a bit of property, so you could hang out anywhere.
Right. You know, it's so fascinating reading about, of course, you're talking about age, born in 1918, you're talking about age 8 or 9. I know you'd mentioned earlier this morning that you had some vivid memories of even a teensy bit earlier age when you were doing I don't want to say a newspaper route, because I understand you just got on a corner there, but since our show is sponsored by the Myrtle Beach Herald, share with viewers about that first experience of selling newspapers.
Well, I sold on the corner for the Denver Post. And reason I got beat up was because they didn't want no new kid coming in and to get the papers in the afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
And so you had to stand in line, and after I did stand in line, somebody came along and said, "You took my place," and I said, "No, I didn't." And anyway, there's ruckus started.
Oh, yeah.
So a fellow that came along and said, "You're bleeding pretty bad." I had my split lip. I still had the scar. And he said, "Come on upstairs," and he said, "We'll get you fixed up." So I said, "Okay." So if you wanted to check somebody out, after this was all over and everything, his name was Doc Bird Finch. And he was a cartoonist for the Denver Post.
Right.
And in the meantime, while they were patching me up, Frederick G. Bonfils, who was the publisher and owner, came along and says, "What's going on here?" The ladies were fixing me up, you know, the typists and so forth. So they told him, and he said, "Well, don't you have a corner?" And I said, "No." Well, all of the corners were allocated out. He said, "Which corner do you want?"
No, the publisher said that to you. That's a nice position.
So I told him, "Well, I want the one right on the corner from out the front door. It's yours." So
come on.
Yeah, so I sold papers there for 2 or 3 years, especially in the wintertime.
Am I correct? You bought them for 2 cents?
And sold them for 3.
That's a pretty good margin there, yeah.
Yeah, normally people would buy a paper and they wouldn't want their 2 cents. They'd say, "Here's a nickel, go ahead," you know. So it was pretty good deal, but you could only buy 10 at a time.
They would only sell you 10 at a time?
Yeah, after you got rid of those 10, then you had to go back and get another 10.
Well, great that you didn't have to walk far.
No, I didn't. They treated me pretty well, the Denver Post did.
That's tremendous. And you were pretty young then.
5 and 6 years old.
That's amazing. So your parents obviously knew what you were doing. They knew you were, and being right there out the front door, you were in a pretty safe location. Was the Denver area just that way, that parents would have 5 or 6-year-old children out and that it was okay?
Yeah. It wasn't a very large city at that time, about 40,000.
Right.
Now it's about 6 million, I think, or 5 or 4 million or something like that.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And anyway, my father and mother bought a house in Aurora. So that was 14 miles away.
Right.
And the only way to get out there was by streetcar. And it was a number 14, and it went all the way to the end of the line, and you got off there and walked a block and a half to where we lived at 1315 Uinta Street. And then when we started to travel, after they moved out and got the house and so forth and so on, because otherwise we were living in a cold water flat. I don't know if you know what a cold water flat is.
No, no. Share with us, please.
No hot water.
Oh, well, yes. No hot water at all.
No hot water, no.
How'd you take a shower?
Well,
a cold shower?
In a
or bath?
A copper boiler, one of the old copper boilers. I don't know if you've ever seen one or not.
I don't think I have.
Everybody had one. And they'd put the boiler on the stove and fill it about half full of water, and then everybody would take a bath in the same water. And they'd drink it down off the stove and put it on the floor. Mm. So that's what we did. And we used coal as a heat. And there wasn't much to the place. It was only a living room and 2 bedrooms. And a small little kitchen. Well, a kitchen you didn't have, you just had a stove. That's all you had.
You have vivid memory of this, Kenny.
Yeah, I do.
I mean, just hearing you say riding streetcar number 14,
yeah,
clearly you've got a pretty vivid memory.
Yeah, I remember a lot of things. I've forgotten a lot of things also. Maybe on purpose.
Possibly blocking some out.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. What year was it that you, not to fast forward too far, but what year was it that you got into the U.S. Army Air Corps?
1940.
Is that right? Okay.
I was a draft dodger.
Oh, good. You're admitting it now.
Yeah.
Getting that off your chest.
Well, in the old days, they had a big fishbowl. I don't know if you've ever heard this before or not.
No.
And the president at that time, I've forgotten who it was, used to put his hand in there and draw out a bunch of numbers. And then if your number came up, and you were supposed to report to the Air Corps or the U.S. Army, and then you would be, from there, you would be sent to a repo depot, and then you would take your year's training, and you would be out. If you went in 1940, you'd be out in 1941.
Huh. Or
42, maybe.
Right.
I was ready to get out in February of 42 or 41.
Mm-hmm.
And then Pearl Harbor came along, so I was duration plus 6 months.
You weren't getting out, that's right.
No, I wasn't getting out. And Hertha was pregnant, and she was still living in California when they come looking for me. I don't know how they found me, but they found me. I said, "We've been looking for you for 3 months."
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
And you were in your early 20s.
Yeah,
and I know we fast forwarded to.
I was 22.
You were 22, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so we just put all our groceries in our car and took them back to the Inks Brothers Market in Sacramento, and they gave us back. They gave us credit for cash.
Right.
Came back out in the car and got a bottle of Johnny Walker Brown label and put it between the seats, and away we went to Colorado.
Is that right?
I had 10 days to report to Fort Lupton.
And you said Hertha was pregnant with your...
Hertha was pregnant with
only
Larry.
child?
Yeah.
Oh.
And so they sent me from Fort Lupton to Biggs Field in El Paso, Texas. It's still there. It's quite a depot.
Mm-hmm.
And then the question of my citizenship came up.
You mean because you were born in Canada?
Because I was born in Canada. So all the guys that I knew and went in the service with, they were all gone.
Right.
And I'm still down there
drinking your Johnny Walker.
Yeah. No, I wasn't drinking no Johnny Walker.
How long did it take them to resolve that?
About 3 weeks.
Okay, yeah. They were going to figure out a way to make you an American citizen,
That's
no
right.
matter what.
There was a law in 1922 that said that any person who was born in a foreign country of American parents was automatically a U.S. citizen.
No, your father was from Wisconsin, your mother from Scotland.
Yeah.
Right.
So my father was the reason that They
Right.
got to me.
Right.
And you didn't need any papers or nothing for that to happen.
Right.
So that's what happened.
Mm-hmm. You were never real serious about dodging the draft there. It wasn't heading up to
No,
Canada.
I didn't even
Yeah.
know that
Right.
because
They
we got
just-
married in Denver, and then we went to Sacramento. I got in trouble in Denver, and
Ooh.
we didn't have to leave, and we left. And we went to California,
Right. Right.
and we bummed around for a while. We happened to have a few dollars, so we didn't do anything for a while.
Is that right?
Yeah. Then I went to work for Collier Motor Sales, which was a NAPA for 13 western states.
There and that was not yet in Placerville, or you were there?
No, that was not
Right.
yet in
I
Placerville.
saw later on you had your own.
Yeah,
right.
they give me a store when they sold out the Genuine Parts in
Mhm.
Atlanta.
Right.
They weren't going to do anything like that. They swore up and down that they were going to keep the same personnel and all that stuff, but it never happened.
Didn't happen.
No, it didn't happen.
Well, I'm amazed to say time is flying by. We've got less than 10 minutes, so there's a lot to get into, and we want to fast forward, not all the way forward, but to that, surely to the computer experience. The fascinating thing was you mentioned there right here at the beginning of the interview that many of the people you're communicating with are friends from a very early age.
Yeah, they're relatives.
So that means they are
That's
they
right.
peers of yours in their 80s?
Yeah, they're in their 80s.
Uh-huh. How did they get on the net?
Well, I got a Christmas card from one in Nanaimo, and down at the bottom it said internet number so and so and so and so.
Right.
I said, that's odd. So Larry and Ginny got me a computer. I already had one, so I got on the computer and tapped that in there, and I never heard from them for 2 months because nobody was checking the email.
Right.
And then Joyce finally got on the horn, and she told me, well, what are you doing on there? I said, what are you doing on here? So that's how it started.
And this would have been in the last 10 years, or?
I would say 2000 or 2001 or 2.
Is that right? Yeah. In the last 7 to 10 years. That's amazing.
Then my cousin in Nanton,
Right.
he got on the line. I got his email from Joyce, and Joyce gave me an email of May and Marg, who lived in Edmonton. And in the meantime, I'd already got in touch with the one in Colorado. She was a friend of my wife's, and her name was Dr. Pauline Rosen. And well, we've been on there ever since.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So you are, if you weren't here right now with us at 7 a.m., you would be online? You get online early in the morning, start checking emails?
Afternoons.
Afternoons, yes. You take it easy in the morning.
Yeah, I usually sleep in.
Very nice. Well, of course, being creekfront in the summer, being able to spend some time, do you get out on the water much?
No, I haven't done that in many years.
Good for you. Take it easy.
We used to have a boat in Sacramento, and when we went to Placerville, we had to sell it because it was too far to go. But we run that boat every weekend.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
You and Hertha?
Mm-hmm. 25-foot Trojan cruiser.
Oh boy, yeah.
Nice boat.
Yeah.
Had to give it away to get rid of it.
I've heard that about boats. Sometimes people get boats, think, "What am I doing with this thing?"
Yeah, we used to tow Larry and his college buddies in the Delta. Them guys would run me out 35 gallons of gasoline in an afternoon.
Yeah, thankfully, the prices weren't what they are today. That's right.
They were higher.
Oh no!
At the docks than they were.
Oh yeah.
But it was a good time. That was the best part of my life, I think, my wife and myself.
Is that right? When
Yeah.
y'all were out running Larry and his buddies around?
Yeah.
That's exciting.
And he said to me one day, he said, I go away to college, and he said, you buy a color TV, and he said, you buy a boat, and here I am stuck in school. And I told him, well, son, that's the way it goes.
Right, absolutely. Well, of course, you all took good care of him in his youth, and Now
I
he's
hope so.
enjoying
I hope so.
being having you around. He and his wife have you. They got you and your wife to move here in, I believe, '95.
Yeah.
So you all.
They built us a place here on their property,
Oh, good.
and therefore we could come and go from Mesa as we wished, or wherever we wanted to go. We could always have a hat here and a hat in Mesa, and we just traveled.
Right. Right.
And that's the way we went until she had a stroke, and she died a couple of years later. I think 2002.
Right. Right.
January the 1st. So times is tough since then.
Yeah. Well, we're sure thankful you're here, and of course the internet's probably a good opportunity for some solace to be able to communicate with folks that. So you were regularly penning, you were writing notes, and always communicating pen to paper. And now it's just immediate.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't hardly pick up the pen anymore,
Is that right? Yeah.
except to jot a note or something.
Sure. Sure.
The internet's a wonderful thing.
Great for communication.
Yeah. And you can find a lot of things on it. I'm looking now for the correspondence I had with the Denver Post in about 2003 or 4, somewhere along in there. And they transferred me over to one person, then transferred me over to another one, and transferred me over to the one who was in charge of the old-time Post. But she didn't go back that far.
No.
Yeah, so she said she couldn't help me. So
You ever track down that cartoonist who picked you up, track down some of his cartoons? Yeah.
Now, he signed his name as Doc, D-O-C,
Right.
and then right in the middle he drew a bird with 3 feathers down here, and 2 legs, and 2 arms, and then he put Finch behind it. That's the way he signed his cartoons.
No.
He was a great guy.
Oh, yeah.
A great guy. Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Yes. Well, it's so special to hear you think about, when you're talking about things, let's see, if when your wife was pregnant, so that's a good 65 years ago, but that idea about, I mean, literally trading in the groceries and getting the Johnny Walker there, I mean, these are things that really, when you think, oftentimes folks may or may not communicate with persons in their late 80s or 90s, and to think about how vivid that is. I mean, it sounds like you can almost picture yourself walking in, going through that transaction, getting that bottle, driving away. You can kind of picture all those surroundings. And
well, my wife went to live with her mother and my mother. They were both living in Denver.
Right.
And both of them had other children. My mother had 3 more.
Right.
And Hertha's mother had 2 more. And everybody's gone now, except me. And but I have lots of relatives in Denver.
Good.
Lots and lots. They got a lot of email in Denver too.
Oh yeah. It's a very internet savvy city.
Yeah, I got one fellow he's a nephew. He's actually my nephew, and he's a little older than Larry. And he's on there every day.
Really?
Yeah, he's nothing else to do, he says.
Who are you most surprised? We got about a minute. I hate to say it. I can't believe time's blowing by so fast. Who are you most surprised that's online? Was it Joyce originally back there? Is it anyone?
Yeah, it was Joyce originally, because I didn't know too much about the internet, and I didn't have a handle or anything like that. And my handle is Hangtown Red 18. And that's
Hangtown Red 18. Well, we get Hangtown.
Red hair.
Yeah.
1918, my birth date.
I love it.
So that's what my handle is.
That is great. Well, as I said, it could be the ABCs. It could be so many, and
yeah,
I love that one. You think about, for you, Kenny, anything that really, clearly there's so many memories that are vivid for you. Is there anyone that had a tremendous impact on you at an early age that still carries forward to today?
One person, my aunt, her name was Catherine Biddle Rich, R-I-C-H-E, and she was the instigator of bringing us down from Canada. She was in Wisconsin my father was her nephew, and she took a liking to him, and so she got him some employment down in Denver, and that's why we went to Denver, on account of Catherine Rich. Right. And she died quite some years ago, but she was always there. Any time that you wanted anything, you'd have to go see Aunt Catherine. And I don't know what business she was in, or never did bother to inquire, I guess. But she always had plenty of money. Well, plenty of money, I'd say, to live comfortable.
Right.
And she's always good for a buck. So she was nice. Her son and her met when I was in the service. I went to furlough there a couple of times, and she was living down towards the state capitol in Denver, in one of the hotels down there. And we went down and had a dinner with her and so forth and so on. And that's the last time I saw her.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Kenny, I'm so sorry to say 26 minutes have blown by, and we got to get a little plug in for our advertisement. But thank you so much.
Oh, thank you
for coming in to be with us this morning, and look forward to seeing you on the internet.
Okay, good.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
This is really a treat.
Really a treat.
Absolutely. Nice firm handshake there. Stay tuned. A little more Carolina people with Kenny Biddle. I just hate running out of time. We're going to have to get Kenny Biddle back another time. The experience is both on camera and off camera. I wish you could have sat here the last couple minutes during our little break there to hear him talk about boxing. Boxing alone. It's worth getting him back. We'll get him back. Kenny Biddle, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Okay.
It's been a real treat.